Hello all, welcome to Xerxez Solution. In this session, we are going to discuss about the concept of inheritance in Python programming language. First and foremost, we will try to discuss what exactly the inheritance is, what are the different types of inheritance which are available, and in the beginning level, we'll try to cover two or three concepts of inheritance using Python programming language. In my last session, I was discussing about reusability, which is a very important concept as far as coding is concerned. So the developers, let's say, okay, you take any project, we don't want to repeat the same code again and again, or we don't want to write the same code again and again. So once it is defined, so the programming should have the concept of reuse the same code in the other the module also. So in that cases, the inheritance comes very handy with us. In the last session, I was discussing about how to create the classes and the objects. Now using inheritance concept, it is also possible to reuse the objects as well as the classes by using the concept of inheritance. So the name itself will define what exactly the inheritance is. There will be two classes. One is called the parent class, which is also called the base class, and all the methods, all the variables what you have declared in the base class, it is also possible to inherit or use it in the child class, which is also called a derived class. That process is called inheritance. And in this session or in this tutorial, we are going to learn the inheritance using Python programming a language. So as far as inheritance general syntax is concerned, this goes as follows. So where you will be having one base class and the body of the base class, and you can call the base class within the derived class by using the default function called base class, which is nothing but the name of the base class what you have defined, and you can assign extra methods and definition within the derived class. This concept is called the inheritance. Next is, as far as inheritance is concerned, there are five types of inheritance, such as single inheritance, where you will be having only two classes, base as well as the derived class. Multiple inheritance, where you can have n number of classes and you can access whatever the class, the methods you have in the base class, you can call it in the derived class. Similarly, we have multi-level, hierarchical inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. As far as in the beginning level, we will try to discuss the three levels of inheritance as far as this session is concerned. Let's try to take a single inheritance. In the case of single inheritance, what happen? You will be having two classes. In my case, I have taken one simple use case where I have taken vehicle as a base class. Inside this base class, vehicle, I have defined one method in the name called vehicle info, which is self, and I'm going to print by default, I'm going to print inside vehicle class. Okay, so the content is it which is coming, this content inside vehicle class is available inside the class called vehicle, and vehicle class is having the method called vehicle info. Further, what I will do, I'll try to create one derived class in the name called car. And I'm going to call this base class as vehicle inside the derived class called car. So that in that case, I'm able to access this method called vehicle info from even the class called car also. And along with that one, I'm going to define one more extra class within the class called car, called car info, and I'm going to print by default inside car class. It's pretty simple and pretty straightforward also. Now what I will do, I will try to create one object called car, and I'm going to call the class called car, and this car is already inheriting the method called vehicle info, which is inside the class called vehicle. Okay, and now if I want to display this, what I will do, I'll try to call this object called car, and I'm going to display vehicle info, which is inside the class called vehicle. Okay, and I'm inheriting that one using the class called car here. In the same way, there is another function called, sorry, method called car info, and I'm going to access this one using the object called car. In this case, this object will be having the permission to access both the method, one method called vehicle info, which is inside the class called vehicle, and the other method called car info, which is inside the class called car. So this is simple inheritance concept, base inheritance concept, which generally we can use in any programming language using the Python, and it's very simple. Okay, defining the methods, objects, inheriting, etc., as far as Python is concerned. If you run this one, you can see, okay, all you can display here inside vehicle class, inside car class. Okay, next level of the inheritance we have is called multiple inheritance. In multiple inheritance, what happen, there will be one derived class, okay, can inherit multiple base classes. In that case, what happen, so you will be having n number of base classes, and there will be only one derived class. Suppose you take the family structure, there will be father and mother. Okay, and child you can consider as an derived class. Father and mother can be considered as an base 1 and base 2 a class. Let's try to define, okay, and let's try to see how we can access the data methods and the objects using multiple inheritance. In this class, I have created one base class called person. Okay, and person information, these are the person information where I have the values like inside person class, and I'm assigning name as well as the age. So you need to provide this value, okay, as an parameter, as an argument from the outside of the class here. Okay, that we will try to discuss. In the same way, I'm going to create one more base class too called company, and company information. Okay, and I'm going to assign the values like, I'm going to have the values like company name as well as the location. Here itself I have defined it. Okay, and I'm going to print the value like inside company class, and I'm going to print name, company name, as well as the location I have to pass the value. Now I'm going to access whatever the value which are available in base 1 and base 2 class, okay, using the derived class called employee here. And employee, if I want to, okay, access the base classes, you need to call this one within the bracket here, person comma company. Okay, person is nothing but my first base class 1, and company is nothing but my second base class 2 here. And I'm going to define one more definition called employee info, self, salary, as well as skill, which is nothing but the extra methods, okay, and the objects I'm going to create inside the employee, along with the objects like name, age, from which comes from class person, and okay, company name and location, which comes from the class company here. Okay, now how we can access this, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to create an object called employee, and I'm going to call the class called employee, which is nothing but in my case derived class. And using this derived class, I can access the method, all the method like person info, company info, as well as employee info here. Okay, and I'm going to pass the values for those. Person info required name and age, Milan. Let's try to give the name be Tanzim. Okay, Tanzim, and age is, let's say, 33. Next, company info, let's say Google. Okay, Atlanta, which is nothing but the location here. This will be feeded to the class company, okay, company name as well as location through the derived class called the employee here. Next, employee information. In this case, we have extra the argument called salary and the skill. Let's say salary be this much, and skill is machine learning. The moment when you hit on this, let's try to see what I'm going to get inside the from inside the class. Name is Tanzim and age is 33. Inside company class, Google, location is Atlanta. Inside employee class, okay, 19,000, skill is machine learning. So this is the one simple example of I have chosen to demonstrate how exactly the multiple inheritance work in Python programming language. In the state ways, okay, I have taken one simple here, base 1 and base 2 classes, okay, and I'm using the keyword called super. Okay, super, we will talk about super this one in later on sessions, how exactly it works. Okay, and I'm calling, just focus on this first and second. Second and first I have called here in the same way. Okay, if you check here also, okay, here while calling I have called person, sorry, here while calling in derived class, okay, I'm calling first is person and next is the company. Understood? There is no difference here. So it is also possible to call second class second and the first here. Understood? In the third class I'm going to call, so I'm going to print straight away like print first, print second, as well as print third, so and so forth. Okay, now next is call this third straight away. I'm going to call third class. Got a mind? Third class name I'm going to call. The moment when you hit on this, so it is going to give all the information, all the data which contains in the class first, second, as well as the third year. Next is uh, I've taken one more simple example. Okay, so you can go through this for mammal as well as the dog, which is comes under the part of the single inheritance. Next is I have taken a lot of examples, okay, to demonstrate multiple as well as single inheritance as far as uh, inheritance concepts are concerned. Now let's try to discuss what exactly the super keyword is. A super function is most commonly used with init function in base classes. Okay, this is usually the only place where we need to do something in a child, then complete the initialization in the apparent. Okay, private members of the, you can see here, super class I can see. Okay, so some kind of an initialization if you want to give, you can give it using the keyword called super here. Next is private members of the parent classes. Now it is also possible, it is not sub in such cases security is very important. You have seen two types of a class, a single and multiple. So in that cases you can access all the data objects, everything you can access it. In certain cases it's very important to give the restrictions even for the derived classes while accessing the objects and the methods. So that option is also available in inheritance by using the concept called private members of the parent classes. We don't always want to instance variables of the parent classes to be inherited by the child classes. We can make some of the instance variable of the parents class private, which won't be able to access by the child class. We can make an instance variable by adding double underscore, okay, before its name. So we can do it through double underscore you can give. So it makes your variable, okay, as a private variable. In that cases you cannot access it. So let's try to take one simple example here. I have created one class called C, okay, and object I have given. Okay, next is I'm defining constructor here. Okay, self C equal to 21. So this variable easily can access by the class D. Okay, when it comes to D, you can see I have used D with a double underscore. First you give double underscore, then you give D equal to 42. So in this case, okay, so D value, which is nothing but the 42, cannot be accessed by the class D here. Okay, which is nothing but the derived class. Now in the same way, I have created one more class in the name called D, and I'm calling the class called C. Okay, within the class D. So that means the functions of C as well as D I should be able to access as per the previous sessions are previous examples are concerned. But okay, along with that one, I'm assigning one more variable. Sorry, the object here called E, which is the value is 84 here. Now I'm just initializing it. Okay, so C tends to initialize self. Now I'm creating an object called object1 and I'm going to call derived class D. Understood? I'm going to print state away here d dot d. Understood? I just want to uh, access only the d value. Let's see what I'm going to get. The moment when you hit on this, it sends an error message indicating that d is a private, it's a protected objects where inside the class C. So in that cases, d you can access within the class C itself. You cannot access that one, okay, outside of the any of the classes as far as inheritance is concerned. So this is the level of the security generally we can offer, okay, when you are building or when you are designing the inheritance concept, class to class access of the data, okay, which is also available in Java programming as well as C programming. So in the when it comes to protection wise, as far as Python programming is concerned, you can do it through using the double underscore. Next, we have other type of inheritance called multi-level inheritance, where in multi-level inheritance what happen, all the features of the base class and the derived class are inherited into a new derived class. Okay, so here base class also, derived class also, you can inherit it using the derived class. So that means, let's say grandfather, father, next the child. So in that cases, I can access grandfather data, father data, as well as child can access grandfather as well as father data. Understood? So here, okay, there are three classes. ABC is the super classes, B is the child class, okay, and AC is the child class B of B. In other words, we can say a chain of classes is called multi-level inheritance. Let's try to take one simple example here. As far as multi-level inheritance is concerned, so what I have done, I've created one class called vehicle and I'm assigning inside vehicle class, which is nothing but my base class. Next, I'm going to have a child class of base class, okay, car. Understood? I'm calling vehicle, okay, inside the child class called car, and I'm printing it as a class here. In similarly, I'm going to create one more child class, which is car is going to become an base class for the class called sports car. Understood? And I'm going to print inside the sports car a class here. Now further, okay, so this is going to be the derived class, okay, for the base class called car, and car is going to become the derived class for the base class called vehicle here. Now I'm creating an object and I'm calling the sports car straight away here. Understood? Now I'm assigning the, okay, now one by one I'm going to access from sports car. I can access the method called sports car info as well as vehicle car info. The moment when you hit on this, okay, so it is going to display you, give you all the values like of all the three classes. This is the best example for your multi-level inheritance. Okay, let's try to take one more simple example. Okay, as far as this simple example is concerned, I have given the example of child, parent as well as grandfather. Okay, class animal, eating, class dog, I'm calling an animal, okay, barking, okay, baby dog, which is nothing but the class, and weeping. Understood? And I'm going to call an object called d baby dog. Understood? And baby dog is going to access all the elements of the rest of the other classes. The moment when you hit on this, you can see eating, barking as well as weeping, okay, in multi level inheritance. It's very simple concept I have given. A hierarchy also, as far as hierarchy is concerned, in hierarchical inheritance more than one child class is derived from a class single parent class. In other words, we can say one base class and multiple derived class will be there. So here, okay, it's pretty straightforward. So let's try to take vehicle as a base class here. Okay, info method I have taken, this is a vehicle. Next, what I have done, I have created one more derived class called car. Vehicle I'm calling, which is nothing but in my case it is a base class. Car is a name I have to give here. Understood? In the same way, I'm creating one more derived class and assigning called truck, car, truck, class truck, and I'm assigning vehicle, which is nothing but my the base class here, and I'm printing truck name is so and so. Now let's try to I'll try to create an object called one, and I'm going to access the class called car here. So car will have, can access car name as well as the vehicle. This is an vehicle. Similarly, car info I can access. Car info I can access here. Understood? So car info I can access. Object info is nothing but this one. Okay, I'm accessing of vehicle through the class car. In the same way, I can do it for the other one also called truck. Object 2 I have taken truck, which is nothing but the class. So the in this case I can access truck info as well as the info also. So info, truck info I have given, and I'm assigning the value for my name here. In first case I'm assigning BMW, and in the second case I'm assigning the Ford here. Okay, the moment when you hit on this, so you can say this is a vehicle, car name is BMW. This is a vehicle, car name is Ford. For this first two, this is I'm assigning through a class car as well as vehicle, and the for next two, okay, I'm assigning from class truck as well as class vehicle. This is the best example for the concept of hierarchical inheritance using Python programming language. Next we have one more a very important one, the concept called hybrid inheritance. In hybrid inheritance, it consists of multiple types or a combination of different inheritance is called hybrid. So in hybrid, generally what we do, we can combine one single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, and we can merge together, and it takes the form of the hybrid inheritance. The name itself will suggest what exactly the hybrid is. Let's try to take one simple example in this case also. So I have a class called vehicle, and this is the method called vehicle information. I'm calling a class called car and inheriting the class vehicle inside the class called car, and I have one information called method called car info. Similarly, I'm using truck. Vehicle is nothing but the base vehicle base class here. I'm inheriting and I'm going to display this one along with the vehicle class. Now sports car can inherit its properties of vehicle as well as the car. Now what I will do, I'll try to create one more class called sports car. In this case, what I will do, I'll try to inherit the class of car as well as the class of vehicle. But in the case of car, I'm inheriting the base class called vehicle, and in the same way the class truck is also inheriting the base class called the vehicle here. So in this case it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so there will be two single level inheritance I'm combining in one derived class here. Understood? And I'm passing this one, and let's try to see what I'm going to get. So inside vehicle class, inside car class, inside a supercar class. This is how, okay, hybrid inheritance works. So since we are in the beginning level of this courses, so I want everyone, okay, so those who have opted this course to work on this, okay, understand the concept of object oriented as well as the classes, different types of inheritance. Okay, so far we have covered in our session. In later on session, using all these concepts, we are going to design one simple hands-on projects using Python programming language. If you have any doubt, okay, if you have any kind of an use cases, okay, you can comment in the review box. Our representative will get back to you soon. Okay, and if you have any doubt or if you want to meet us, okay, contact personally, you can write to us using xerxes.in, or we have our official email address also called info at xerxes, okay, dot in. Okay, dot in, you can contact through this email address also. Okay, thank you very much. Let's try to meet in our next session, and document, the complete document is also available attached in the course LMS, our LMS portal. You can go through it and you can explore the rest of the use cases what we have used in our session. In next session we will try to discuss about briefly about superclass, is subclass, okay, and the most important concept called method overriding, which gives some level of security as far as class inheritance concepts are concerned. Thank you. Thank you very much.